I'm Helen. This is Maryellen. We're going to talk about the transforming operations through an agency management system consolidation, which sounds very big, and it has been very big.
Yes.
Very big. But what I'm going to tell you guys is, you know everything we talked about in the morning? She's the proof of concept to that. And it's amazing, and it's a journey. And so let's talk about it. So the challenge, take 30 acquired businesses, 30 plus acquired businesses, find operational efficiency through aligning workflows, grouping common tasks, and moving to a common platform. Maryellen, can you share with folks the initial stages of aggregating the businesses in SPG, and then some of the key challenges you faced during that early part of your journey?
So in the early part of our journey, we like to keep the businesses true to who they are and why we acquired them. So we try not to change them too much, but one of the key things that we've done is really spending the time with them to really understand who they are, how they operate, what they do at a very granular level. So as we start to bring all that information and aggregate that information, we can start looking across the platform for commonality and start building out at least like the foundation of what common process should look like. Looked at, multiple platforms. We've been spread among about 58 different platforms over the course of the last 9 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things was, in the early years, we didn't just run to select a platform. So we spent several years of, letting the businesses get comfortable in the new world they lived in. And as we continue to look at who was going to be the best fit for us, that kind of could spread across the variety of business types that we have. We have anything from wholesale MGA to specialty retail, along with large transactional wholesale business. So, and we recognized early on it wasn't necessarily going to be one size fits all. So we kind of looked at what components could we lean in on with maybe one particular vendor, and then build those strategic relationships that were going to help us, through each stage of our journey.
When you started and began to build what SPG, Specialty Program Group, was going to be, did you have in your mind, like, it's going to be 30 plus businesses, or did you start thinking we're building something kind of bespoke ourselves?
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily looked at it as 30 businesses out of the gate. We were looking for best in class, strong businesses, strong leadership, with a growth trajectory. So we definitely don't purchase or acquire fixer-uppers. So we're looking for the ability to be able to scale. So if they're a solid business, when we acquire them, we can invest the resources in it to make them that much more stronger. We also help them with the things we could take off their plate right away. One of the things we did is built centralized services. So things like compliance in the very early stages, that was one of the first things that I think every business was super excited to get off their plate. And then we continue to scale that. We continue to look at what else is in value add to what you're trying to do, but it's still really important to just the operation, whether it's because of regulatory or otherwise. So we're continuing to collaborate with the businesses and build more there.
Yeah, it's been fascinating for me with MGA experience herself to watch you guys scale this big organization. Because it is a challenge, but everyone's on board, right?
Most of the time.
Most of the time. So some of the solutions that you've shared with me that we've worked through some of these things together, I think now that you're really transitioning, and maybe before I ask that, I'd like to know When you decided to move to a common platform, how long ago was that? And how much collaboration before you took that move?
So 9 years ago, when I joined, before we actually acquired any business, started looking at what was in the marketplace and doing a lot of research. And we were about 5 years in before we did our first official migration. We had a couple businesses that were already on the platform through acquisition, but it was about 5 years. And that, I think, is part of the challenge is, we're already like 5 years behind in trying to move quickly and getting everybody under the same like data structure and process. So, sometimes now we're pretty aggressive in what we're trying to accomplish, throughout the year.
Yeah, and this year has been a real ride for us with that, moving 14 businesses onto the new platform so far.
Yeah, so in the last 18 months, we've done 14 migrations and gotten 14 businesses onto a common process. And then we see that as the foundation to, really being able to scale and bringing us to the next level, automation and other things.
Well, it's great because you really did have a path that was cascading. So you decided what platform, started standardizing processes, started moving people onto the platform, and then from there we can move into the submission center of excellence and whatnot. And it's very, I don't know, it feels methodical almost.
Yeah.
As you are. And now you're building the dream team over here, so the operations team. So a shout out to you guys. Other solutions that maybe you can speak to a little bit. With the Center of Excellence, so we're starting in submissions, but we have some ideas about standardizing other processes that shouldn't be bespoke, maybe?
Yeah, I think the vision was always starting with the Center of Excellence with, just getting accounts cleared and starting to get a better foundational data so that, again, downstream, that's going to help us build more product and other things.
Right.
But also, like, the next phases of that are, how can we get a quote and a binder out a lot quicker, and seeing what we've built with the submission center and the successes we've had there. We're thinking that's the next big thing, along with potentially like a centralized invoicing team.
Yeah, and it's a journey. It's like it's evolving, right? You're on the path of this, and now the business units are all getting on board with making the changes. Lots of collaborating with them and communication with them.
Yeah, and it's always evolving. As much as we have sort of a blueprint for what we want to do, I think we're always looking at each new business. All right, do we have to pivot, or does it still work with what we thought would work 3 or 4 years ago? And there have been, challenges around whether it's data or unstructured platforms, and like, all right, now how are we going to get this to kind of slide into, what we've been, planning for. So we always take a step back, pivot if we have to, and then have been looking at some other, like, I would say plug-in type of platforms that were things that might be outside of the standard.
Right. Like, you're not adverse. You said to me at lunch a line about, now I can't remember the line. It was something about, I can't remember it. Tonight I'll tell you all that. We did do some consulting work with you to work through some process mapping and standardizing some business units. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So one of the things we wanted to do is get a current state view of every single business. And again, so we're queued up as we start to migrate. We have what the current state is, and that's where we partnered and, used the ReSource Pro team to help with some of that process mapping. And then, sometimes there's some recommendations that come out of it, but we were more focused on at least helping us get the current state documented so that, we can do the necessary evaluations and make sure that we don't have any
Right.
surprises, when the project's kicking off or that we're halfway in the middle of the project. So that has been pretty impactful for us over the last couple of years, and I think we'll continue to, partner with them depending upon, new acquisitions. I mean, we're acquiring roughly 3 to 5 a year, so, it's going to keep continuing, and being able to at least get the foundational information kind of down just allows us to start being more thoughtful around how are we going to optimize, what makes sense, what doesn't, and again, where do we need to pivot? Just because something was the plan, we have to be true to ourselves there. That's probably not going to work, so let's, move in a different direction.
Yeah. The just you saying the word data made me think, wow, that's probably huge for SPG to have standardized data because that's a huge asset of MGA business.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the most impactful things around starting up the submission center, because they were getting all that risk level data in the system that, a lot of times the producers want to quote and move on, and they don't have time to do some of the, the data entry. So starting that from clearance to entering that risk level data, and then really the disposition of quotes and just getting more and more robust data has now, we're not 100% there because we're about 50% done with the migrations, but building new product and the other things that we want to do to support our portfolio, now we have that data that we were sort of, before cutting and pasting together with spreadsheets and, sort of making, pulling all the data to make the story. Now we're able to, run queries and just move a little quicker.
Yeah, that's great. It's so valuable. So valuable for moving programs from carrier to carrier, and also valuable in business reporting to understanding what's working for us, what's not working for us.
Yeah, like who's declining a lot of submissions, and it gives also our leadership team, better information for when you're having those conversations with the carrier, that you're actually telling them how we're performing versus them telling us. And really, it has allowed us to get, deeper with, like, we have an actuary now who can tell us when, programs are starting to run hot. And so we're really getting in front of some of the challenges that you sometimes find out too late.
Yeah, I like people talk about program business becoming more and more sophisticated, and I think that's just evidenced with all the things you guys are doing. All right, and now, the impact. We've probably talked about all of these things, but 13 agencies from 10 different systems successfully converted in 15 months. Like, clearly we've said all different numbers before. 14 agencies from 10 different systems converted in 18 months. How about that?
Yeah.
Minimize business disruption through really intense planning. And we have been very flexible. You've been very flexible about how we've lined up the businesses through conversion. And then, everybody's business has peak times, and we've moved some businesses up or down to try to accommodate for those peak times while still trying to drive through.
Yeah, and I think with just the speed that we're trying to do these migrations and having a good partner that we're able to add resources quickly to help. So the businesses, when they're, they have these blackout periods during migrations, that we're able to, supplement that with resources that, one, know the processes, know the system. So that's been the benefit of having our conversion team. They're, they know the systems just as well as our internal staff, so that when we do a conversion and we need some data entry done, or just helping the teams get back on track, that has been, impactful, and really everybody's really appreciated that, because nobody's asking for this change, for the most part. Some are, but for the most part, it's just a nature of, all right, we have to get our foundation built so that we can do bigger and better things together.
Yeah, Yeah. We're saying here 100% process standardization compliance. We've worked hard at making the processes make sense with the new system and not being tyrants about if somebody needs something to be a little different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're flexible. Again, we try and, as you know, we always say as common as possible, different when necessary.
That was the phrase.
Which actually helps when we're communicating with, like, when the businesses really don't want to change and there's not really a valid reason. You know, we kind of talk through it like that with anything we do, which is, you know, has helped move, you know, and influence some of, you know, the progress that we've made.
Yeah, because change is hard. I mean, we all know it. Hard, necessary, and inevitable.
Yeah.
And just briefly touch on unlocking automation opportunities. I feel like everything that you've done over the last 5 years has gotten you to a much better place for both automation and then utilizing some of those AI things that we're all imagining utilizing.
Yeah, no, we're excited for that next stage. Again, like, we've built the foundation so that now we're getting our data organized and getting everything flowing in the right direction, that it will make it that much easier. You know, we make those decisions to start, you know, investing in AI. We're already doing some robotic automation. And we plan this year is to scale that further. And again, making life for the processors, underwriters, producers that much easier.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. This was a great chat. If anyone has questions, we do have microphones here. I'm not sure. No one looks like they're moving, so.
No, that's good.
All right, then. Then I think hit the music, guys.